Hi, it's Katrina. Number 10. The Sword in the Monastery. An archaeology student visiting a Venetian monastery noticed a sword on display that didn't quite seem to fit. The ancient sword was believed to be just a few hundred years old, displayed by the monks at the monastery as part of their museum. But the student was insistent that the weapon was much older. Her name is Vittoria dal Armelina from the Ca' Foscari University in Venice. In 2017, she insisted that a proper analysis of the sword be done to see how old it truly is. As it turns out, the sword dates back about 5,000 years, and nobody has any idea how it managed to get where it is today. What we do know is that 5,000 years ago, swords were invented in eastern Turkey. It was the first time humans picked up a blade with the intention of using it for combat. But how it got to the monastery is the real mystery. The university contacted the monastery for more information, and they revealed that Armenian Catholic monks had been residing there since 1717. This sword had been a gift from an art collector 150 years ago. The art collector had procured the sword from parts unknown. It's believed it could have been discovered at Kavak, the location of an ancient Greek colony in Turkey. But its exact journey from being handcrafted 5,000 years ago in the Bronze Age to being put on display at a Venetian monastery in the 18th century will probably never be pieced together. Number 9. Roman Iron Mask. An archaeological mystery may have just been solved with the help of some very interesting Roman remains discovered in Turkey as well. Archaeologists unearthed the partial remains of an iron mask from the days of Rome. The rusted artifact was uncovered thanks to excavators with the Karabük University at the site of Hadrianopolis. It was once one of the biggest settlements in the area, inhabited from between the 1st century BC to the 8th century AD. But anyways, back to the mask. It's exactly what you think an iron mask would look like, a Halloween-style mask wrought of iron. Masks exactly like this were probably worn by Roman cavalry 1,800 years ago. The masks were used to protect the face and neck of the warriors as they charged into battle. But until this discovery, historians hadn't been entirely sure. The mystery was that they couldn't figure out if the masks were only used as part of some kind of ceremony or indeed for war. But because this iron mask was found in an ancient military installation, it looks like the mystery has been solved. Now just try to imagine hundreds of Romans in chariots adorned with terrifying iron masks, all of them charging across the field of battle to slaughter your tribe. Number 8. Wiped out Roman legions. Experts working at the archaeological site of Kalkrisi in Germany recently discovered a fully preserved cuirass that once belonged to a Roman soldier. According to the director of the museum, the piece of armor is the oldest and most complete of its kind ever discovered, and that makes the discovery both tragic and unique. The armor undoubtedly belonged to a soldier who died during the epic Battle of the Teutoburg Forest. This battle was more of a massacre than anything. 3 legions of Roman soldiers were walking through the forest when they were ambushed by Germanic tribesmen. It was one of the greatest military defeats in Roman history. 15,000 soldiers were slaughtered in a very short period of time. The Germanic barbarians burst out of the forest and massacred everyone, although the Romans probably deserved it. Now you're probably wondering where the mystery is. It's not necessarily the battle, but what happened to the Roman soldier that's mysterious. He was found along with his armor with a device that had been used to lock his wrists in an iron board. He may have been part of a sacred ritual, meaning he was probably alive when the fighting was over. The Germanic tribe kept him to be sacrificed in an unknown and probably extremely brutal ritual. It's why they left his armor alone. It probably would have been tainted by the ritual. Number 7. Ancient human species. Scientists believe they have uncovered the remains of a new human species. The discovery actually happened about 90 years ago, and it wasn't scientists, but rather a Chinese construction worker who uncovered a fossil from 146,000 years ago. It was a human fossil, actually a preserved skull. But for almost 90 years, nobody had known what humanoid creature the skull belonged to. It was a total mystery. At the time the skull was discovered in 1933, the area was under Japanese rule. The construction worker found the skull while building a bridge. He smuggled it back home, believing it may have cultural value. When he arrived, he hid the skull at the bottom of his family well. but he never told anyone until just a few years ago on his deathbed. His family then went and got the skull from the bottom of the well and handed it over to scientists. After analyzing the skull with the newest forensic technology, scientists determined that the cranium could have belonged to a previously unknown human species. According to scientists from the Chinese Academy of Sciences, it's one of the most complete skulls they have ever seen. The mysterious person whom the skull once belonged to has been nicknamed the Dragon Man. One of the reasons is that his skull seems to be among the biggest of any species of human. Scientists believe he may have belonged to a sister group of Homo sapiens, creatures very similar to us, but with larger and more primitive features. Number 6. The mysterious Median Empire. Archaeologists in Iran recently uncovered the remains of a prehistoric military fortress in Tepe Rivi. This is in the North Khorasan province, with the fortress being dated back about 2,700 years. Back then, the area was ruled by the Median Empire. But the Median Empire is so obscure that they are barely more than a myth. As far as we know today, the Medes occupied an area they called Media in the 11th century BC. This was a mountainous region of Iran and Mesopotamia. They appeared sometime in the 8th century, though nobody actually knows for sure. Their capital was the city of Ekbatana, what is today the modern city of Hamadan. And here's where things get really mysterious. The ancient city of Ekbatana is still considered to be a riddle, because it's completely buried under the modern city, which has never been excavated. This means that anything scientists want to learn about the mysterious Median Empire is out of reach, buried directly underneath homes, businesses, and streets. The new discovery of the fortress simply proves that the enigmatic Median Empire had probably existed with governments and a fairly beefy military. But what happened to them after the year 625 BC is still largely unknown. Number 5. The origin of Native Americans. Until recently, archaeologists and anthropologists were fairly certain that the original Native Americans who migrated into North America did so from Japan. Specifically, the first people who ever lived in North America were believed to be descendants of the Jomon, a people who occupied Japan 15,000 years ago. This was around the same time, although the exact dates have been highly debated in recent years, that people were migrating to North America via the Bering Land Bridge. A new discovery has flipped this hypothesis on its head. Scientists are now saying that the biological evidence does not match up with previous archaeological findings. G. Richard Scott from the University of Nevada says the Jomon of Japan have absolutely no ancestral links to Native Americans. Instead, the Jomon are more closely related to Southeast Asians in places like Thailand and Cambodia, as well as East Asians in China and Korea and Pacific Islanders. Now, here comes the mystery. Since Native Americans weren't descendants of the Jomon, then who? Scientists are now speculating that they came from a different group living somewhere in East Asia. They just don't have any idea of where or who. Number 4. The Alien Pharaoh. Akhenaten is one of the most mysterious figures in history, mostly because he may have been an alien. First, let's take a look at the facts. Akhenaten was the 10th ruler of Egypt during the 18th dynasty. He's most famous for his bizarre appearance, having a seemingly elongated head and extremely large features, while also looking oddly feminine. But he's also famous because he tried to drastically change the religious order of ancient Egypt during his rule. He moved the capital from Thebes to Amarna and established the cult of Aten that would specifically worship the sun. Not exactly the sun itself, but the sun disk, which was an aspect of the god Ra. Ra was to be the one and only god, and all the others were to be ignored by the rest of the Egyptians. The people were not very happy with this change, and there was much civil unrest. The pharaoh changed his name from what it was originally, Amenhotep IV, and became Akhenaten. He ruled for 17 years, completely disrupting Egyptian life, and then died. When his son Tutankhamun took over, he got rid of the cult of Aten and reintroduced all of the ordinary Egyptian gods. The reason some people believe the pharaoh was an alien has a lot to do with the way he looked. In pretty much every depiction of him, he looks like a modern-day alien. He's skinny with a protruding belly and large eyes that take up way too much of his extremely large head. And why did he look and act so strangely? Plus, there was allegedly a medallion found in an Egyptian temple that showed the pharaoh Akhenaten with a UFO hovering above him. There have been many other weird artifacts found surrounding this pharaoh, and many of them seem to suggest he was at least in cahoots with a race of extraterrestrials. Number 3. The oldest English coin. An archaeological dig in the Canadian province of Newfoundland has unearthed what could be the oldest English coin in Canada. William Gilbert, the head archaeologist involved in the project, says the smaller silver coin he and his teammates uncovered was minted between 1493 and 1499. The coin itself is known as a Henry VII half-groat. It's about the size of a nickel and was minted in Canterbury in the United Kingdom. The mysterious coin was discovered at the Cupid's Cove Plantation Provincial Historic Site. This site was the location of one of the earliest English settlements anywhere in North America. It was settled by a merchant from Bristol named John Guy in the year 1610. It's no surprise that the oldest coin would come from the oldest settlement. But how that coin came to be there is still a mystery, mainly because it was minted 100 years before the settlement was even founded. The next most recent coin found here was from 1560. So the question is, what happened in all of those years in between? Number 2. Lost Indigenous Settlement. A team of archaeologists claim to be fairly certain that they have discovered the location of a lost community of indigenous people who once thrived in the northeast part of Florida. Mention of this mysterious settlement appears in historical documents from both France and Spain, dating as far back as the 1560s. But for decades, the actual location of the mysterious community has eluded researchers. Now, a team from the University of North Florida says they have probably found the settlement. They found the remains as part of the Mocama Archaeological Project. For those who don't know, the Mocama were some of the first indigenous people to encounter Spanish settlers during the 1560s. They were also some of the first people to encounter brutal warfare with the British, infectious diseases from European colonization, and all of that historical terribleness. They were also completely wiped out by the Europeans, with no trace of them left today. This is why discovering their settlement is so important. The archaeological team has found 50 pieces of Spanish pottery, stone artifacts, bones and shells, and fragments of what were probably houses. Excavations are ongoing for the next 3 years, so hopefully the mystery will soon be solved. Number 1. Non-returning boomerangs. Boomerangs have been used by indigenous people in Australia for at least 20,000 years. This is based on cave paintings found depicting boomerangs that have been dated back that far. The oldest discovered boomerang is only 10,000 years old, but that's because boomerangs were traditionally made from wood and don't stand up very well to the test of time. Recently, a pair of workers with the National Parks and Wildlife Service in South Australia found 4 boomerangs. They dug them out of a dry creek bed during the middle of a drought. They had been there for about 400 years, yet were in surprisingly good condition. The mystery behind the boomerangs is that they weren't designed to return to the person who threw them. We all know that when you throw a boomerang, it's supposed to come back to you, but all 4 of these weren't designed that way. This became a huge mystery as archaeologists scrambled to figure out why the Aboriginals would have wasted their time with non-returning boomerangs. To understand the mystery a bit better, we need to look at what boomerangs were used for. They were typically used as projectiles for hunting and fighting, but as it turns out, boomerangs may have also been used as multi-tools. They could have been used in ceremonies, as shovels for digging, and for a whole host of other tasks. The truth is that we don't know why these boomerangs were designed not to return. They may have been used as hammers, clubs, or could have just been failed models that were thrown into the creek as trash. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye!